Yeah, there's a lot of wild card entries this year.
On the dates, do you know?
So we'll get started as folks are logging in here. Want to say a special thank you to Don Porter, who's joining us. Don with URG, and they are the presenting sponsor of the NABC Virtual Car Show this year. So thank you to have his involvement and his support.
First is a Sunday.
Thanks. You're going SEMA week.
If
So-
everyone can mute their phones, and then any questions that you have for Charley, you can just put them on chat and I will read them to Charley. So we're ready to start, Debbie?
Let's roll.
Okay, good. We're really excited to have Charley as one of our judges for the National Auto Body Council Rides for Ridler. Virtual Car Show. Gene, can you mute your phone, please? Charley's going to be judging the hot rods, rat rods, and customs category. And Charley Hutton, if you don't know him, he's really recognized as one of the top, I'm going to embarrass him a little bit, but one of the top automotive painters and fabricators in the world today. And he travels all over the world. We'll talk a little bit about that. Charley's really got a portfolio, great portfolio of work and a lot of awards that he's achieved already. You may have seen him on American Hot Rod. He was the painter and shop supervisor in season 1 and 2. And then he was also in overhauling for some time with Chip Foose. He's won 4 Ridler Awards. Ridler Award is the top honor in the automotive fabrication and custom and painting industry. And his last one was in 2016. His previous wins were in 2005, 2007, and 2013. And he is a strong supporter of PPG, automotive refinish paints, and that's what he paints with, and he's a supporter of them, and he's presented at some of their banquets and things like that. He owns his own shop in Idaho, Charley Hutton's Color Studio, and in an industry of nice guys, he's one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. So welcome, Charley. It's really
thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much. And it's an honor for me to be able to judge this. So, because I mean, it's such an awesome cause. And that's the thing is a lot of people don't really even realize that there's organizations and groups like the NABC that does the kinds of things that you're doing. So, I mean, that's awesome that you do that. So it's always a good cause. Good.
Tell us what you've been up to.
Oh man, other than falling to peer pressure to my grandson and breaking my foot, but no, we just, we're very blessed. We just keep working on the cars and having fun. So we've tried to, all the years of the crazy deadlines and stuff like that, trying to get cars done for car shows, it kind of gradually wears on you a little bit. So we've tried to scale back some to try to avoid some of the really crazy deadlines, but we're still just playing with cars and having fun. So I haven't had to get a real job yet, so that's a good thing. So, well, I don't think anybody would hire me. Is the thing. So,
do you have anything that's going to SEMA this year?
Actually, we do not. We do not have anything for SEMA. So, it's one of those things that, again, with schedule and just the crazy years that it's been. We've just been really focused on just trying to button up some of the projects we've had here in the shop and our customers that we're doing these vehicles for really don't take them to SEMA. It's mainly for museums and so forth. And we just finished up a 250 California Spider for a gentleman out of Sacramento, California that it was just kind of a fun pride and joy and a fun project to do. So, but yeah, he doesn't have any intentions of taking it there. So, but
okay. So I know you travel a lot to Australia, and Clint has a question, and he said, how would you describe the interest in hot rods in other countries, whether it's Australia, Europe, or Asia?
That's a good question, because the coolest thing, the very first time that I went abroad and I went down to Australia, I was blown away by the support and the passion for the automobile. The hot rods that they have down there is insane as well. because I guess as a small town Idaho kid, just growing up in the States and never venturing out, I mean, you just think of hot rodding as just in your own backyard. But then when you go abroad and you just see that the passion, for cars, regardless of which language you speak, it's like that is the common ground that we all have is that shared passion for the car. So, but yeah, the Aussies, I tell you what, man, they definitely know how to build them down there. So the joke is always though, is I give them a hard time because I always tell them it's like everything down there's got a blower on it. It's like you don't have a real car unless you got a blower on it.
You travel down there a lot. Is it more for personal appearances or is it for work? I know you've gone down there and painted some cars, right?
Yeah, basically for all the above. And we've got some dear friends down there and that we like to call family. So the Aussies have accepted us and they keep letting us in the country. So, but yeah, so a lot of it is what started it was doing show appearances for car shows down there. And then working with PPG down in Australia as well. So, and then with being down there, the whole idea of doing a project down there, we never thought about, but we had a couple people approach us and the opportunity came up and the guys at the shop here thought, I mean, what an opportunity to get a trip to Australia, right? So, yeah,
we'll see. Well, have fun tonight.
Okay, if everybody
tonight.
can mute your phones, please.
Okay, thanks for calling. Okay, bye, Steve.
Bye, Mike.
Okay, whoever
That's
just
cool.
hung up with Steve, if you could mute your phone, that'd be great. So I'm sure you have a lot of stories about your time working with Boyd and all the car builders on that team. Share one of them with us, if you would.
It was just being at Boyd's. I mean, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for Boyd Coddington. He gave me an opportunity and the love and the drive that everybody at the shop had. I mean, it was just what a perfect opportunity to work in a facility where you could do the best you could to build these cool cars. The TV stuff, sometimes I frown a little bit on because what it did is it sped up the process to where we had to meet the deadlines. Kind of was a bummer sometimes, but I mean, it was fun. Boyd was an awesome guy, and what I laugh at is
Here, hold on, Charlie.
One of them came up. There's Charlie.
Heather, would you please mute your computer or your phone there? Thank you.
so.
All right, go ahead.
Lots of outside noise, huh? So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
He's
no,
my
the
helper.
funny thing is with Boyd, when Boyd and I first got together, part of the deal is he would pay me X amount and he would put me up. And the funniest part is that he put me up at his house. So I was like the built-in house sitter and dog sitter, but that's what really got Boyd and I to be really close. And I used to laugh because, I would work till, midnight, 1, 2 in the morning and then come home. And there'd be times I'd come home to Boyd sitting in his underwear in front of the TV, just doing the clicker. So Boyd and I, we'd just sit down and have a blast. But, one of the really cool stories is when I was down there doing the first scratch built car for Boyd, the Lead Zephyr. What was really exciting was one day I was down there on a Sunday working away and Boyd had stopped by the shop to check on me after church. And of course he's all done up in his church clothes. And I was fighting the fitment of the master cylinder up underneath because it was frame mounted master cylinder. And it was just, the clearance was hitting the floor. So I cut a hole and I was making a little bubble. So, then it would clear. But the way that car sat, the seats actually sat directly on the floor. So we didn't have a ton of room to be able to put a bubble on the floor. And so Boyd, he tells me, he said, dude, just give me that dang master cylinder. And it was the funnest thing to see Boyd take that master cylinder, walk over to the mill, clamp it in the mill, and just shave down a little bit for the clearance. Because obviously, for the fluid reservoir, it's not like it goes all the way to the top. So that was fun for me to see that. Here's Boyd, the machinist, car builder that you never saw him doing any hands-on stuff, but then for him to still know that he still had it. So that was pretty cool.
Wow. Hey, what's the average length of time that you work on some of the vehicles that come into your shop?
That all kind of depends. We do a variety in a sense of what we call just paint and trim. So like the paint and trim ones is say we've got a muscle car that's an original, 60s Mustang or GTO or whatever it is that has super low miles, and being the low teens of miles, that's obviously the paint's been bad. It's sitting in a garage where people stack boxes, scraping it, but the interior's still perfect and mint and all the mechanicals are good. So those cars we call paint and trim, to where we just basically gut the interiors, strip them to bare metal, and then bring them up from there. And those projects usually take, about 6 weeks to 2 months to do. Then when we have our full-blown restorations, like the GT350 convertible that we did, that one was around a 6 to 8 month project, and that was fixing everything, every nut and bolt, you name it. So when you get into the Detroit cars, those are little, our involvement in the beginning is a lot of the help with the design and that kind of stuff. But then once it comes to my shop for what we call the finished fab, bodywork, paint, and assembly, usually, unfortunately, with those things, it's a mad thrash. So a lot of those projects, usually we're involved with those for a good year plus, but the actual thrashing time for us on those is usually a couple months, and it's 7 days a week and 20-hour days when we do those, just trying to meet the deadline, because I've always tried to convince car shows to put the date back a little bit because we're behind, but I'm not very convincing.
How many people work in your shop, and how big is it?
Right now I've just got 2. At one point I had 6 guys. But the thing is I am a hands-on guy. I am not happy in the office. That's not what I was meant to be. I like being on the floor doing the things, but it's one of those things that as business grew, not knowing how to say no, you never want to disappoint people. So we were taking on a lot of projects. So the employees grew, thinking it would take pressure off of me, and all it did is added more pressure. Because now we have more projects, which meant more office time, more research, more parts, you know what I mean, that kind of thing. Yeah. So my wife and I, and as dumb as this sounds, I never wanted a business. When we started, our shop here, it was all about passion and being able to do the best we could on a normal time frame. You always have to have deadlines, obviously, but we just realized that having too many guys, it was a business. And I know that sounds silly, but that's not what we were trying to achieve. So we've scaled back. We've got 2 really good guys. My main guy, Dan, has been with me for 8 years. He was just a punk kid out of trade school, 21-year-old kid that came knocking on the door. And at that time, like I told him, it's like, we need the help so bad, but he didn't have the experience, and it wouldn't have been fair for me to hire him, because I wouldn't be able to invest the time in him to get him where I needed him to be. And then it wouldn't be fair to our customer, because then he would be taking my time from doing their project. So I told the kid, I said, just keep in touch with me, and he was on my doorstep every week for 2 months. So finally I told my wife, it's like, you know what, this kid's got it, because I always tell people is I can teach the skill, but I can't teach the passion. So yeah. So, and then my new guy, Garrett, the guy Garrett that I have, he's a mechanical engineer. So, great guy. He brought a lot, to the table when he came to be with us and stuff. So we still give him a hard time about the mechanical engineer parts. I'm like, come on, dude, quit doing the step-by-step thing. Let the process flow. But yeah, so he's a great guy. So it's just 3 of us in the shop. So, and I'm loving it every day.
What an education that guy's getting from you, though. That's unbelievable.
Oh, I know. I know. He's a good guy. He really, really is. And he was a mechanical engineer and he hated it, and he started his own shop, and he had his own shop for about 10 years in Northern California. And he'd been in contact with me for about 1.5 years and really wanted to come up here. A lot of it too, he wanted to raise his family out of California. Once kids got to school age and stuff, he just wanted to get it into the Idaho school system versus California school systems, and just a slow down pace of life, you know what I mean? So yeah, so it's been great. He's been a great asset, and he's definitely learning, that's for darn sure.
So you're not taking any cars to Sema, but you are probably still going to Sema?
That's kind of a funny story. So, well, it's, and obviously as the world we've lived in, and last year with the postponement of it and stuff, and being in Nevada, the hesitation, not really honestly knowing, and a lot of companies that we're affiliated with, there's been that hesitation for a lot of them as well, whether to go or not go. And I honestly, just because of not having it on our radar from last year and then this year, my wife and I've been needing island time. We go to Hawaii a couple times a year. So one day I finally pulled the trigger and got things booked, and I went out in the shop and told the guys, it's like, yes, I finally got it booked. And the first thing Dan says to me is like, oh, so you're not doing Sema? And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, that's the same week as Sema. You booked Hawaii for this. And then at that point I was like, oh crap. So yeah, so I will not be at Sema this year because I didn't look at the calendar. I'm going to Hawaii instead. So.
Well, the NABC does recycled rides giveaway every year at Sema. So we'd love to have you attend one sometime. If you're not going to Sema, maybe one that's near you.
Absolutely.
That they're really something to see. And
yeah,
of course, hear the stories of the people that are recipients of the recycled rides and things like that.
Yeah. That is awesome. And next year, we'll be there next year. This year just happened to be a fluke because I wasn't smart enough to look at my calendar far enough ahead. I had beach time on my sites, and I was just trying to get that booked.
Here's a question for you. A lot of people spend big on a car build and then get to body and paint and want to cut corners or be cheap because they're running out of money. What's your advice on planning a build? That's an awesome question because that is so true. Like I've always explained to everybody is in the show car world or hot rod world that we live in, everybody's into performance, and it's not your everyday thing, right? And so they're willing to spend the money on performance, the metal work and that kind of stuff. They're enamored by, they're impressed with. But when it comes to body and paint, everybody's been in a fender bender, right? And so they just assume body and paint is just the same. When we're doing that on their cars. And so that's always hard. So it's just an educational process. When we sit people down and number one, it's just like, what is your purpose with this build? Because a lot of guys want super big horsepower, big brakes. And so we really try to dumb it down for them. It's like, let's build a car that you can use, that you can enjoy. And then you explain like budgeting X amount per section. And hopefully that total will be within your top budget that you want to spend. But you just try to explain it to them on the body and on paint side from bare metal up, what it takes, the amount of time and the steps and processes and the products that we have to use to give them that ultimate finish. Because we can give them an ultimate finish, but if it's, I don't know, lack of a better term, you can always polish a turd, but at the end of the day, it's a turd, right? So, I mean, you could do the nicest amount of work and have the prettiest paint job, but if everything underneath is not done right and you cut corners just to save money, then it's going to explode on you later on down the road and it's going to be a waste of money. So you're going to spend twice as much later than if you do it now. Good advice. So let's see, here's a question from Clint. You've painted in a lot of great environments. What was the worst environment you painted in?
So that goes back to the Boyd story. So when Boyd contacted me to, what's funny, so the first project I did for Boyd, he shipped up a 58 Corvette for me to do all the glass work and paint work. And then I sent it back. And then he shipped up a 32 5-window coupe for me to do all the metal work on. So then after I did that, shipped it back, not knowing that those two cars were a job interview. So after I shipped the 32 back, he contacted me to do the car called the Lead Zephyr. But that he wanted me to do on site. So I went to California and I did the Lead Zephyr down at his shop. Well, Boyd had just moved into Robbie Gordon's shop down in California in off of Miraloma, and there's no paint booth, and he didn't have a paint booth. So I got put in the back small section of the shop that was actually where they stored all the sheet metal and tubing for building chassis. So that's where, so when I went to paint that, I did all the body work in there. And when I went to paint it, I just had to hose the floor down, and literally we just draped plastic from the wall to cover all the sheet metal and tubing racks. to paint the car. So that was the worst one. It was funny. So, but the car turned out great. Like I always say, thank God for sandpaper and a buffer.
Yeah, a lot of color sanding on that one.
Yep.
Huh?
Yeah. So
How many cars do you do at average year?
probably 4 to 5 is all we do. A lot of it, we try not to schedule too many major builds at the same time. You know, there's occasions where they do overlap. But yeah, so on average, it's 4 to 5 cars a year. So some of our major projects, we did a 275 GTB Ferrari that was full-blown concourse restoration. That project took us almost 2 years to do. A lot of it just because, you know, finding parts for those was very difficult. So, but yeah, but 4 to 5.
All right, so back to the car show. So you're going to be judging hot rods, rat rods, and customs. What are you going to be looking for when you're judging those cars?
A lot of it just, I mean, the attention to detail is going to be there, and the passion in the build. You know, I mean, whether if they pick a kind of style that they're trying to achieve and they stick with that. You know, there's so many times that you see cars where, you know, it might have a lot of billet, but then they have like the old 50s Coca-Cola stuff with it. You know what I mean? It's like, you know what I mean? You need to stick with the period. You know, guys that try to draw from multiple periods and blend it into one car doesn't always work. You know, so we just try to look for overall appearance, fit and finish. I guess something that just catches your eye, and actually something that I would love to take home and cruise around town in. That's what we always look for, is something that really grabs us and pulls us in.
What is your daily drive?
What's that?
What's your daily drive?
It's not a hot rod. I don't work on my own stuff, unfortunately. So yeah, I know. You know, a buddy of mine, Chip's been on me. He's trying to get me to finish. I've got a 29 Model A pickup that he's been on me to try to get finished up, and he's trying to convince me to come down to California and build a chassis with him right now. So, but yeah, so no, I've got a GMC Denali truck that I drive that made me my tow rig, but yeah, no hot rod. I don't pay myself very well.
What's the most exotic build that you've done, and like the most expensive?
That's kind of tricky. Obviously the Detroit cars get so crazy just because everything is scratch built. You know, especially the ones that we've been a part of. You know, the ones we've done with Chip and Troy Trepanier and you know, Andy Leach. Yeah. You know, and then you know, then the boys out of Texas, Andis. Anyway, those are, when we do those cars, everything is scratch built. You know, I mean, so the whole thought process of designing and where you're scratch building control arms and you name it, all of that stuff is so those are over the top, just because the amount of we're machining new hardware, we're doing everything. So the amount of design. Currently we also, I mean, which is weird, we also do a little some of the new exotic cars. Like for instance, we have an Alfa Romeo TZ3 Stradale in here right now that is designed by Zagato. Zagato is an Italian firm, you know, design firm, and this car actually was based off the Dodge Viper. So Zagato, Alfa Romeo hired Zagato to design a car, and then they build the bodies for Alfa Romeo for just 9 of these cars. Well, we've got one of those in the shop right now that the owner wants us to personalize it as if it was strictly built for him. So with the modern technology, we're scanning the whole car, and then from there working with the designer to make all the pieces and parts, and so all the new carbon stuff and the billet stuff that we'll be putting on it. A lot of bolt-on stuff, but then we'll do slight minor body modifications, but adding a personal twist to a very expensive one of 9 cars. So yeah. it's kind of interesting. We just play.
What's the best advice you could give to a young person thinking that they might want to get into the custom industry?
To follow your passion. You know, it's like I always tell everybody, it's like we can teach the skill level, but we can't teach the passion. And understand that there's a process. It does not happen overnight. You know what I mean? It's just like whether if you're into sports, you understand it's like, you know, you see these professional athletes on the field or on the court, but you never see the hours and hours and hours of free throw shooting and just, I mean, the practice it takes, and from the ground roots all the way through. And I mean, it's no different in the custom world. It's like, you get, I mean, and I was the same as all the young kids. It's like, man, I just wanted to get in there and paint, you know what I mean? And you need to understand that it's okay to get a foot in the door and sweep the floors and just absorb all the knowledge you can from everybody. And don't get, beat down and don't feel bad if you're not able to get into the paint booth right away, because it takes a long time to learn those skills, for whether it's fabrication or the body work to the level that we take it to. But the biggest thing is just be patient and stay with your passion, because when you're passionate, the success will come. So.
Yeah, good advice. I don't know if everybody knows, but one of the cars that we were talking about, you and I earlier, one of the cars that was entered in the wild card category is a Kaiser that you did the body work and painting on. So
yes.
You remember that at all?
I do. That was pretty cool. That was really a neat one. So yeah, the owner of that, Larry Henderson, is an awesome gentleman. And we actually did that. The people that built that was they're out of Escondido, California. So Jordan Bental is the guy that owns the shop that built that car, and it was a fun one. And actually, what was super cool is that was one of the first ones we did when we first got our shop built. So yeah, so once we got our new facility up here in Idaho built, that was one of the first few cars that we had done here. So yeah, so it's been 10+ years. So yeah, thankfully the paint's still on it.
Well, luckily you're not judging the that category, because then we would have to disqualify you.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and that's what always happens. It's like, I do the pros pick for good guys in Del Mar. And that's always hard, because a lot of times there's a lot of cars that we've done, that are there, and I never will pick those cars just because I can't, because I was part of it. So
right.
So you feel bad for the owners, but they totally get it. So.
All right. Well, let's see. One more question, and then we're going to let you go. And we appreciate your time.
Yeah, no worries.
I saw one here about. It says, "Hey Charlie, how are you able to utilize Garrett's skill set as a mechanical engineer in his daily work in Autobot?"
A lot of it is with the mechanical engineering on the fabrication side. I mean, obviously he understands and he can see it, where he understands the finished product, and he understands the steps on how to get it to that point. How to take a piece of sheet metal and bend it up to form whatever we need to make it as. But then also when it comes to, with these cars with some of the modern electronics in it, he's great with that part of it too. Because he can basically kind of almost reverse engineer something that he sees to make it make sense. Sometimes obviously to make sense to me, and then to also make it, make sense to Dan as well. So yeah, so he brings a lot to the table in those areas. So
great.
And he's fun to pick on. He's fun to pick on. He's our 6'6" guy, so we always put him into the tightest situations.
That's big. All right. Well, thank you. It's 1:30. We won't keep you any longer. But for everybody online, National Auto Body Council Ride for Reasons Virtual Car Show, it's just a $25 donation. I mean, really minimal donation for a great cause to register your car and participate in a fun event. And Charlie's going to be judging the hot rods, rat rods, and customs. And Charlie, really appreciate you donating your time to this, and not only the call, but the judging as well.
Well, I'm very humbled and honored that you'd ask us to be a part of it, because it is a great cause, and people need to learn what, about the cause, so they can see what a huge benefit it is. So, I mean, it's giving back, and that's what we should do. You know what I mean? And so it's great with all your partners that you guys have doing this. I mean, that says a lot about our industry. So I'm very pleased to be a part of it.
All right, great.
Thank you, Charlie. Thanks, Dale.
Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot.
All right. Hey, thanks guys. Appreciate it,
everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. See you guys.